we take a closer look at the violence in India where blatant use of sexual assault against women, rape, has been weaponized. In this latest round of clashes, which started a few months ago, the majority Meitei community has been fighting the minority Kuki tribe, leading to what officials admit have been, quote, hundreds of cases of assault. The attacks have prompted national outrage with protests in cities across the country. The conflict is taking place in the northeastern state of Manipur. DW correspondent Adil Bhatt traveled to the region to meet the mother of one rape survivor.
This woman, Teresa, not her real name, spends hours scrolling through pictures on her phone. Pictures of her daughter, we call her Grace. It has been nearly 3 months since she was allegedly raped and murdered by a mob of the majority Meitei people. Grace's job in a car wash was crucial for the family.
She never had time for the simple pleasures of an ordinary life. She had to brave hardships and difficulties. She sacrificed her youth to support her family. She was like my life partner and my friend. The day I discovered her death, I was like a mad person. I felt I'd lost my hands and feet.
Human rights volunteers from her ethnic group, the Kuki, arrived to take her testimony. She tells them there has been no investigation in the case so far.
I begin to choke when I think about her, and I get more and more tense.
Listening to Teresa, this group of women can't hold back their tears. Her grief and sense of injustice is palpable.
How the majority or like the so-called like more powerful community tries to terrorize like a minority group like us like through the usage of sexual violence.
Teresa is not alone. Hundreds of Kuki women meet at the Wall of Remembrance to demand the arrest of those accused of raping and killing Kuki women. Dressed in black, they remember and recite prayers for their dead. Mary Beth is a social activist and Kuki community leader.
So in this current ethnic violence, it's the women who are being targeted because the tribal women, I feel that they paid the highest price because they are being raped, they are being murdered, they are being sexually assaulted.
The Kuki community put pictures of their dead on this wall. Men and women, young and old. In the capital Imphal, women from the majority Meitei community also gather, also protest. Many see the Kuki people as terrorists, drug dealers, and illegal immigrants. They have heard about the sexual attacks on Kuki women and claims that some of their own had carried out those attacks, which they deny.
As a woman, I feel pity for them. But it is a war. The current situation of Manipur is still, war is going on. So that's all.
But they said you handed them to Meitei men.
No, it was totally a wrong concept.
Back up in the mountains, Teresa is distressed and displaced. She waits alone for the body of her daughter and for some kind of justice.
That was very striking, those comments from the Meitei woman in the report. We have journalist Tora Agarwala joining us. She has covered the country's northeast for years. Welcome to the program. Tora, those comments from the Meitei woman who said, too bad the Kuki women were raped, but, and then she explained it was war. That's a lack of empathy that really underscores the ethnic hate. So can you start by explaining who these two groups are and some of the basics of this conflict?
We just have to understand a little bit of the geography of Manipur. So Manipur is basically a valley which is surrounded by hills. And 90% of the geographical area in Manipur is concentrated in the hills, while the remaining 10% is in the valley. in the valley is where the Meiteis stay, and that is the numerical majority, as I said earlier. And so this is a small parcel of land with a lot of people. Surrounding it are the hills, and hills numerous tribes stay. In the north, Naga stay, and in the south, Kukis stay. This is the community which is currently in conflict with the Meiteis right now. So there's always been a fault line between the valley-dwelling Meiteis and the hill-dwelling tribes, because even though the hills have more land than the valleys, the hills people always felt that the Meiteis are the one who, wield economic and social and political power. While the Meiteis, on the other hand, they feel that they don't have enough land, their population is growing, and, they feel that, the hills have access to land and resources. So, ultimately it boils down to, natural resources and land. And that is what is at the heart of the conflict.
Now, you've spoken to some of the women who've been raped. Do we know if the sexual violence is happening on both sides?
I had visited Manipur last month, and I traveled both in the valley and in the hills. I came across not just one, but at least 4 incidents of assault, and some of them sexual assault, which women from the Kuki community had suffered at the hands of mobs. I traveled across the valley too, and I asked people in the valley about such incidents, whether these kind of incidents also happen to Meiteis. While many people said that they had heard of it, no one could really, come up with an example or identify a survivor or anybody who has been, victimized in that particular way. From my reportage, mostly all the incidents of sexual assault and violence were from women belonging to the Kuki tribe. And I think I met at least 4 women who recounted in very excruciating detail what they had gone through, how they were assaulted, and these details. I know there's one video which went viral, and which everyone saw, and that itself was pretty disturbing. But that is not the only case. There have been other cases where women have been assaulted by mobs, dragged out of their hostels in broad daylight.
In terms of,
remember, all this happened.
No, and so I guess in terms of what is the government doing about it, both at the provincial and national level, it seems like they've been slow to respond. And, Prime Minister Narendra Modi didn't address the conflict, I understand, for 2 months, and he only did so after the video that you mentioned. Why have they been slow to respond? And would I be wrong to wonder whether the government has a bias against one of the ethnic groups over the other?
You're right. For more than 2 months, the Prime Minister did not utter a word about what was happening in Manipur. Finally, he did when that horrific video went viral. It is quite interesting to see how, the center and Narendra Modi government has sort of maintained a silence as all this has happened in one part of the country. But, having said that, the center did try to intervene at the end of May. The Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, he had traveled to Manipur, and he had met communities from both sides. And at that point, we felt that something may come out of it. But I don't think his visit really did much to allay the tensions on the ground, and it continued as it has till today, 3 months later. But the Prime Minister has not really spoken about it, and that's one thing. But the other is we have to look at how the state government, which is also led by the BJP, how they have responded to this. To this episode of violence, which started on 3rd of May, right? So before we go into what they did, we must remember that the Chief Minister of Manipur, who is heading the government at the state level, he is from the Meitei community. So we must remember that.
Right.
There are some questions which we cannot ignore at all. For example, these women who I met and reported on, they were assaulted on 4th of May. This is, I mean, more than 2 months back. Even the other woman who I met, the other survivor, and she was assaulted on 15th of May. Now, in many of these cases, police complaints and FIRs were filed as early as 20th of May. Till this video went viral, till, people reacted to the video, it wasn't investigated. None of the culprits were booked. No investigation was being done. So, I mean, this is it's quite, like, let's say, shocking, because something that bad had happened, and it's not like it hadn't been brought to the notice of the police. So what was the administration doing at that time? What was the police? How did these police complaints, filed? How were they ignored for so long? Because in the interim, we saw a lot of, big talk about Manipur. We saw the Home Minister visiting. We saw a formation of a peace panel, but no one was really looking into these really gruesome cases, which members from the Kuki community, they kept talking about it, but no one was paying attention till this video went viral. So, I mean, the only silver lining of this video going viral, as horrible as it was to watch for everyone, is that people, ultimately the government had to, sit up and take notice, because otherwise these stories would have, completely been ignored and, gone untold.
Tora Agarwala, thank you so much for joining us. And just this week, the Supreme Court of India finally directed the government to form a team to look into the sexual assaults. So far, as Tora pointed out, a very few arrests have been made. Reports suggest only 7 in connection to the viral video, where an entire mob of men, from perpetrators to enablers, were present. But there is now national pressure for justice.